Well, I don't know, domestic affairs, politics. No, it's not really politics, domestic affairs. Today we wanted to look at the NDDC, the Niger Delta Development Commission. And as you know, it's been sort of tied down in, something of an imbroglio. They've had so many interesting stories, heartbreaking, heart-wrenching, but interesting nevertheless, in the recent past. Well, our guest this morning is someone who is very familiar with the matter. In fact, former minority whip in the House of Representatives, a lawyer, Dr. Samson Osagie. Good morning to you, Dr. Osagie. Okay. Yeah, I got your sign language. There you go. It doesn't matter that we were speaking just moments before coming on air. These technical things can be like that. But as soon as they can fix that matter so that he can indeed hear us, then we'll be looking into the matters arising out of the NDDC, the Niger Delta Development Corporation. Good morning again, Dr. Osagie. Good morning. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, good morning, Yorin Folarin. It's a pleasure
indeed
being with you this morning.
The pleasure is all ours. Thank you very much for making time for us this morning. So I was just saying that we were going to be sort of talking about matters arising out of the whole NDDC issue. I imagine that there are all sorts of issues, forensic, there's the whole forensic report investigation going on. There also is the fact that it still does not have a substantive board as we speak, unless there's some information that you have that is more immediate than what we do have. How much of a problem is this in looking at NDDC entirely? The fact that it has become, I don't know what maybe you can help us with that. What has been the issue in coming up with a board for the commission? Well, it does seem that it's gone again. I'm sure. Okay, I just saw your mouth moving there, so maybe yours. Did you hear me?
Affecting the Niger Delta Development Commission has been a very controversial one for quite some time now. And I think that there is a lot of misapprehension about what the real issues are. And I think there's just a major issue. And the issue is whether the Niger Delta Development Commission, established by an act of parliament in 2000, can continue to be run and administered without recourse to the provisions of the act or the statute that creates it, by way of having an organizational structure or a management structure as dictated or stipulated in accordance with that act. And I think that is the real issue. And the answer is simple. In a constitutional democracy such as the type that we run, the operations of government and its agencies must be in accordance with the rule of law. And that means that where an act prescribes the method by which an organization should be run, or by which a particular agency of government should run its affairs, it is illegal and it is unlawful to do otherwise except in accordance with the law. And I want to make the point clear from the onset that at the moment, it is not a case of whether the NDDC has a governing board or does not have a governing board. The truth be told is that in October 2019, Mr. President, in exercise of his powers under Section 2 sub A of the Niger Delta Development Commission, did appointed a governing board for the Niger Delta Development Commission and submitted their names to the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that has the responsibility to confirm such appointment under the NDDC Act in consultation with the House of Representatives. And by November 5th, the names of those that were submitted to the Senate for confirmation were confirmed, except one who did not appear. And returns of those names were made to Mr. President. The implication of that is that as far back as 2019, Mr. President did appoint a governing board. So in other words, there is a governing board appointed and confirmed by the Senate, appointed by Mr. President and confirmed by the Senate, that has remained in limbo and in a way not allowed to perform the functions that they are meant to perform under the Act. And now you may ask, why has this situation become the case? I think that is the major concern. Allegations of corrupt practices were made against previous administrations of the NDDC. And then those charged with the affairs of the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs, a ministry and under the ministry under federal government that is playing a supervisory role over the NDDC, decided, wrongly though, that the only way the issues of the corrupt practices that have been alleged in NDDC can be tackled is to bring on board an arrangement that is unknown to the NDDC Act by a structure of a few people running the NDDC by way of an interim management. In the meantime, a governing board duly appointed by Mr. President and confirmed by the Senate was already in place. And so the ministry and its minister went ahead to inaugurate a caretaker committee, apparently based on Mr. President's approval. And that could only have happened in the face of a wrong legal advice or a wrong prescription that must have been presented before Mr. President. And as if that was not enough, as time went on, a one-man sole administratorship was foisted on the NDDC, and that is where we are. Now, some of us have no problem with investigating the NDDC with a view to ensuring that the provisions of the Constitution, particularly Section 88(120), which borders on the exercise of powers by the National Assembly to unveil corrupt practices, inefficiency in government agencies, I have no problem with that. As at this morning, we read reports of the monumental lease that has taken place. The Director of Finance is cooling his heels with the anti-corruption agencies. Of course, the former managing director was involved some 2 years ago. But the challenge and the question we ask is that, couldn't the forensic audit have been conducted while the duly constituted and appointed governing board by Mr. President and confirmed by the Senate being in office and serving as the special purpose vehicle for unveiling the corrupt practices? After all, these were not the people that have run the place before. So the arrangement of running the NDDC with a caretaker committee or an interim management committee or even the sole administratorship is unknown to the NDDC Act. It is against the law of the land. And I believe that this could have been tolerated this long on the basis of a wrong advice or a wrong information or a wrong prescription by those saddled with the responsibility of overseeing and supervising the Ministry of Niger Delta. So there is a governing board in place,
yes,
duly appointed and duly confirmed by the Senate, waiting to be inaugurated for the purpose of carrying out their responsibilities without prejudice to the forensic audit that was going on and even to the post-forensic audit and now the implementation stage. So I believe that we cannot continue in illegality because we want to, check corruption in NDDC. Because the situation today is that the NDDC is being run against the law. And two wrongs can't make a right. And we proclaim a democratic regime based on the rule of law. And we must be seen to be doing that. And what is more important is that we have two of such commissions in Nigeria today. One is the Northeast Development Commission, which is pretty new, but up and running in accordance with the law. So I do not believe that it is good enough or fair enough to allow a sole administrator to run the NDDC to the detriment of the stakeholders of the Niger Delta Development Commission. There are 9 states of the Federation that are stakeholders because the structure of the management of the NDDC is democratically conceived and stipulated by the NDDC Act. And that is why each state is to have a representative in the NDDC Commission. And there are other critical stakeholders, like the oil companies that contribute a percentage of their profits to the funding of the NDDC, like the Ministry of Finance, that is in charge of our fiscal policies and the finances of this country. They are supposed to be represented. Now we have a sole administrator doing the job of critical stakeholders in an agency of government that is funded from the budget of the Federation, to the detriment of the stakeholders. I don't think it's fair. The appointed board by Mr. President can swing into action to carry out the strategic plans and, of course, the recommendations that have been made so far in the forensic audit.
Yeah.
The forensic audit report can be implemented with a governing board in place, since the illegality has been committed from the beginning. But we cannot continue in that illegality. If that board is inaugurated, then the illegality of running the place with a sole administrator or whatever name called cannot be brought to an end.
Thank you very much, Dr. Osagie, for that overview. As you said, well, as a lawyer yourself and a former legislator, you are aware of all these technicalities and you've stated them. Can I ask a simplistic question? The methodology for running the NDDC or any commission like it, it's laid out in the Constitution. The president, as you indicated, and it's not news, had actually, nominated a board, had got approval, but the inauguration is the problem. And whereas you said it must have been due to, no doubt, poor legal advice, what is the problem is my question. Why don't they just, why doesn't the Constitution just proceed on this whole matter? What are the interests? It's a straightforward, as you have stated it and as is publicly known. The president has nominated a board. The board is, has met with the good, officers of the National Assembly, but it's impossible. Instead, you have a sole administrator. What are the issues? What are the interests? What is sought to be protected? It's a public body, as you said. There are many stakeholders, including taxpayers. What, to your mind, is the issue? What is being defended? What is being covered up? What is being hidden?
Yes, unfortunately, that is the big question that we all need to answer. Why has this state of affairs become the lot of the NDDC? And I dare say that this problem is coming since the transfer of supervisory authority over NDDC to the Ministry of Niger Delta. I was in the legislature, I was in the House of Representatives when the former president, Musa Yar'Adua, created the Ministry of Niger Delta and appointed Ufoti Kaite, former head of service, to be the pioneer minister. And the Ministry of Niger Delta was supposed to be an interventionist arrangement, to assuage the feelings of marginalization and development in the Niger Delta, in addition to the NDDC. It was not expected to be a ministry that will now be a hindrance to the performance of the responsibility of the NDDC. I believe that the ministry is, for all intents and purposes, not coming out clean on why it does not want the already appointed board and confirmed board to take over the responsibility, because it is just the duty of the minister to invite the board and then inaugurate them to start the job of the NDDC. But rather, as you can see, even before the current minister, we have seen a transition from a 3-man interim management to a 5-man interim management, and later to a dissolution of an interim management to sole administratorship. So you now ask yourself, what is the issues? And I believe that that is where the people of the Niger Delta are restive and are very worried about the continual marginalization and hamstrung that the NDDC is suffering at the moment. And I believe that the Ministry of Niger Delta can choose to follow the law as it is and invite the board to take over their responsibility and implement the strategic plan as contained in the forensic audit. Because as we can see, all is not well, even with the Niger Delta Development Commission under the sole administratorship, which is an illegal contraption.
Yeah.
So for me, I still think that the president is not getting the clear picture of what has happened these 3 years with the running of the place as against the law. The board has been put in place. It just ought to be inaugurated, and that's all.
And the curiosity is that Mr. President is standing for it, that he has done his part. Why the minister is not, as you said, doing as, maybe, I was going to say simple, but perhaps he might be saying simplistic a thing as simply inviting those that have been nominated and indeed have been ratified. And Mr. President is standing for it. I mean, it's almost like, just to look at the facts simplistically, it's as if Mr. President is, looking away from an infringement of the Constitution. The executive has done its part, and we're hearing of all sorts of figures. As you know, it's out there that 81.5 billion naira between 2019 and 2020 is now the subject of investigation, how that much was spent, whether it was spent well and that kind of a thing. So in the absence of substantial statements or substantive statements, then the public is going to go riot with all sorts of speculations and conjectures of their own. But clearly, I think I want to agree with you, sir, when you said it does seem that all is not well within the inner workings of the NDDC. So that's the problem. Why Mr. President apparently is standing for it. Bad advice or no bad advice. This is against the Constitution.
I believe that Mr. President is a process man, and I haven't delegated the responsibility of overseeing the Niger Delta Development Commission to the Ministry of the Niger Delta. He will, for all intents and purposes, listen to the minister in charge. And that is where, for me, I think that the minister in charge ought to listen to the voice of the people from the Niger Delta and do the right thing. The Mr. President, like you said, had done his appointment. The Senate had already confirmed. But I also believe that the National Assembly has a duty to defend its responsibility as it has done by confirming the appointment. So if you ask me, I would tell you that the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs needs to come out clean and do the right thing by getting the board to take over their responsibility, not to even contemplate another interim arrangement. It is against the law. My worry as a lawyer and as a former lawmaker is simple. I mean, you can't continue to run an organization that is legally and democratic structured to the detriment of the stakeholders. 9 states and other stakeholders, and only one state is dominating the affairs of the Niger Delta. I mean, we can't continue like this, and that is my point. So I believe that there is no outsider running the Niger Delta affairs as we speak, both at the ministry level and at the NDDC level. So we owe ourselves a responsibility to do things according to law. The president has performed his role in accordance with the law. So whatever issues there are, if there are issues which is not in public domain, I mean, as you can see, there have been a plethora of uncompleted cases, unconcluded cases, seeking to compel the Ministry of Niger Delta, compel government to follow the law by inaugurating the board and getting them to do their job. Because this illegality cannot continue. I mean, the Nigerian Ports Authority was investigated some time ago. I mean, it's still up and running in accordance with the law, setting up the authority. So many agencies of government, even including the anti-corruption agencies themselves. When Magu was removed as chairman of EFCC, he didn't stop Mr. President from appointing the board, which have come into force. So my point, and which is my concern, is that at this point in time, 3 years down the line, the people of the Niger Delta, particularly the stakeholders of the Niger Delta Development Commission, are being shortchanged by their representatives not having input in the running and management of the NDDC. When, as a matter of fact, they have been appointed, they have been cleared and confirmed by Senate. So, I come from Edo, for instance. We are expected to have a representative in the place. For 3 years, Edo has no representative in NDDC. Ditto for many other states. That is not the spirit and letters of the NDDC Act, and of course of the parliament that passed the NDDC Act in 2000. So if you ask me, the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs just need to complete the work that the president has started. I think this illegality has reigned enough. We can't continue in it, and we cannot remain adamant as if nothing is happening.
Well, as you are well aware, the Senate at one point actually, prevailed on the NDDC to refund almost 5 billion naira extra budgetary expenditure that had been made. We don't know the result of that yet, but sort of a connected question I was going to ask is that this situation seems to be, just like you seem to be perplexed about it, a lot of other people will be. It seems to be left on its own. So how about the National Assembly then? How about the National Assembly? Why is it also not able to, as it were, even force issues? You recall that at one time, Nigerians were hugely entertained when it did invite members of the commission, all sorts of, among people fainting, among, kill your mic, allegations that legislators, no less, were also complicit in what had become, well, that was the perception in the absence of any substantive fact. Everybody seemed to be involved in a free-for-all. So why do you think the National Assembly is not also able to, just like Mr. President, as you said, listening to the minister, but the National Assembly can summon anybody and ask for an explanation. Even Mr. President is not beyond the summoning power of the National Assembly. But then again, in between all sorts of accusations that were flying around and the deafening silence coming from the National Assembly, what do you make of all of that? Is it still part of the same exchange?
Well, I would say that the National Assembly, particularly the Senate and the House of Reps,
please continue.
Yes, the National Assembly, particularly the Senate and the House of Reps, have oversight responsibility over the Ministry of Niger Delta and the Niger Delta Development Commission. They were responsible for confirming the appointment of the governing board that has remained in limbo and waiting to be inaugurated, which ought to be inaugurated. But I believe that it is the executive responsibility to complete the remainder of the process. But the National Assembly can still bring its pressure to bear on the executive to complete the process in accordance with the law. I believe very firmly and very strongly too that the National Assembly can do that. But I am not in a position to say whether the leadership of the National Assembly did prevail on Mr. President to complete the process, and maybe a counter pressure from other quarters may have also resulted in it. But what is important is that there appear to be conflicts, in going forward with the matter. And these conflicts are rather imaginary, than real, and it now depends on the whips and caprices of those who now have opportunity to use the NDDC for whatever they want to use it for, under the pretext of forensic audit going on. So I believe very strongly, like you suggested, that National Assembly, in exercise of its powers of oversight, can continue, or should, as a matter of fact, prevail on the president to have the minister do the needful by handing over the management of the NDDC to the governing board that have been appointed and, of course, confirmed by the Senate. I believe strongly that that can happen. But, of course, like you said, there have been allegations against members of the National Assembly, committee members on NDDC. These allegations keep coming. In a democratic society such as ours, people must be held accountable. And those allegations cannot stop unless there are no scintilla of evidence pointing to the likelihood of the issues that are being raised. But what is important is not whether these allegations, prevail, or whether these allegations are there. It's whether there are truths in this allegation. And of course, if there are truths in this allegation, then the relevant agencies of government must take the bull by the horn and investigate whoever is responsible, whether it is in the legislature or in the executive. But that cannot in itself stop the process of running the commission under the law. So whatever allegations and investigations that are going on cannot stop the process of running the agencies in accordance with the statutory provisions of the NDDC Act. And that is our point. Mm-hmm. So if anybody is caught in any malfeasance or in any sleaze regarding the funds of the NDDC, the person should face the law squarely, and I quite agree. But in facing the law, that cannot be an excuse. That should not be a subterfuge for stopping the will of the NDDC from running in accordance with the law. Yes. And I think that is where I feel that Mr. President is not getting the true picture. He may have been told, oh, Mr. President, if we don't clean it up before these other people come, there will be a problem. Just a way to just confuse things before Mr. President, who would like to stick to the process as have been laid down.
Okay. All right. Dr. Osagie has explained it. It's very clear what the law says. He's told us what the president has done. The president has done his duty. Nevertheless, there is still there's an aberration called a technical committee, which is in place of the board that Mr. President had indeed, recommended, sent to the National Assembly, been ratified, and still is not getting to see the light of day. There is a minister, no doubt, so they've come up with this device, shall we say. So what the issues are is not at all clear to anybody, but the one thing that people will probably hold this administration responsible for is the pledge it made in coming in that it didn't matter whose ox would be gored, they would do everything within the law to lower the rate of corruption in society, if not abolish it altogether. Now, it's important to say that one is not even saying yet that there is any corruption. But I ask you, what are ordinary God-fearing people to make of all of this, who don't know any better, who are not connected to it? But this is it's a public board, public funds are involved, yet the right thing, that is to look at the black and white thing, the black and white stipulation of the Constitution, is not being followed. So this is the big problem. It does say a lot, perhaps, about the whole fight against corruption, even as I hasten to add that that pronouncement will have to come from an investigative body. But as Dr. Osagie has said, there is nothing wrong, it doesn't seem to me, to have the properly constituted board in place as the place is run with public funds and stakeholders are being accounted to as all of this is going along. But it isn't. Dr. Osagie, are you also concerned that perception out there, ordinary members of the public, who you, especially the National Assembly and all legislators, who you people really are working on behalf of? You're working on behalf of the public. Are you concerned that they too could begin to get the wrong end of the stick, even if they could find the stick at all?
Yes. Yeah.
So
it's possible to have a wrong perception of all the stakeholders involved in the NDDC management, and indeed in governance generally. In this matter, particularly as it relates to the Niger Data Development Commission. It's possible for the public. I mean, the perception could be, oh, the NDDC has become a cesspool of corruption, nothing good is coming out, and all of that and all of that. But we mustn't forget that NDDC was created as an interventionist agency. Mm-hmm. And so far, since its creation, in some areas we have witnessed a few impacts that the NDDC has made. But on a large scale, there is abundant evidence, except if you are not in the Niger Delta and you have not followed the development. There is abundant evidence that a lot of wrong things have been done. No one can deny that fact. And that is why I want to make it clear, abundantly clear this afternoon, that no one, even in the Niger Delta, is against the conduct of the forensic audit in order to unearth the monumental slips that has taken place. Of course, as at the last count, we are told by the former minister that over 13,000 projects have been inaugurated and for which payments may have been made. Those are not the things, that are encouraging. But the point we are making is that if there is need for further legislative activities with respect to the running of the NDDC, then unless and until a repeal of the NDDC Act is carried out by the Parliament, then nobody, including Mr. President, with the greatest respect, can suspend the NDDC Act and run the NDDC in a manner that is not prescribed by the law. Because Section 1 of the NDDC Act establishes the commission itself and made it a corporate entity capable of being sued and capable of suing and being sued. And Section 2 establishes the governing board of the agency, which stipulates how the agency is to be run and who should constitute the governing board. And then Section 3, Section 4 tells us which states and which stakeholder has the right to have its people represented in the NDDC board. So the law has prescribed how the agency should be run. That is my concern. And it is straight principle of law that when an act prescribes the procedure by which certain steps and certain actions are to be taken, any other step outside that procedure is null and void. It's a nullity. So while we commend the searchlight beamed on the NDDC right now, we cannot accept achieving that result with an illegal process. That is our position. So the public maybe, you know when you tell a lie several times, it becomes the truth in the eye of the public. Yeah. And that is why clarifying these positions and making these interventions by some of us, has become necessary. I mean, I have been a legislator and I practice law. And when people try to turn truths on their head and you come up with all kinds of gambits and you are clearly in flagrant violation of a law validly made by the National Assembly, then not everybody can take that anymore. It does not speak well of the posture of the rule of law by this administration. And I believe that Mr. President, with due respect, if he has this full picture. It will not allow this aberration to continue, for another minute. But unfortunately, he's a process man, and he has to believe on those he has appointed to handle the responsibility. And I believe that, in no distant time, this message will get to the seat of the presidency. Because he has done his part, and he has done well in accordance with the law. But a sort of a coup d'etat had to happen shortly after the appointment of the board and its conferment. So the board ought to be inaugurated, and once the board is inaugurated, then the recommendations arising from the forensic audit then cannot become their template for administering the place. After all, let me give you this information. Section 12 of the NDDC Act did give Mr. President the power to control, supervise, and give directions to the NDDC.
Okay.
That is the truth of the matter. So NDDC is under the presidency. That is the truth of the matter. When we are passing the budget in the National Assembly and we are talking about agencies that are entitled to capital transfers, NDDC is one of them. It's not like every other ministry, that comes under general provisions. It's a specialized statutory commission created for a purpose to meet the developmental needs of the agency. And the board is the only body that can administer that agency. Any other contraption generated or manipulated to run the agency, no matter how long, will remain an illegality.
Indeed. Well, I want to thank you very much, Dr. Samson Osagie, for airing this matter. It's being drawn out, especially if you're not a political person, you're just an ordinary citizen and expecting that our elected leaders will do their job and do the needful. They can't seem to understand it. As you've said, Mr. President is a process person. He wants to go by the law. In fact, he has said this on a number of occasions in differing context, that, look, I am bound by the law. I'm a Democrat now. But this one that is flagrantly being violated, and the Attorney General is in there, is maybe his chief legal advisor, he is not uncomfortable, otherwise he would have transmitted this discomfiture to the president. We could just leave it as we don't understand it, but how does one put it delicately? We just hope for the best in this kind of a situation. The ministry is, as we have said, the ministry is running the affairs of the place. But why are the processes not being followed? Thank you very much, Dr. Osagie, for asking the question again and asking it loudly. We'll see if it'll make any difference or if we still have to be a bit more patient. Thank you very much, Dr. Osagie, Dr. Samson Osagie, lawyer and former minority whip in the House of Representatives.
Thank you, Yuri Folarin. I'm glad to be with you. Our
pleasure. Okay, then. So there we have it. I don't know if there are some other ideas. We can open the phones now. And I suppose in the absence of any hardcore facts, it's probably going to be speculative what people come up with, because Mr. President that always wants to do right, especially by the law. You just heard in that piece with Dr. Osagie that everybody has done their job, and then it can't fail to register in your mind the intense and unintended entertainment that regaled the nation when the National Assembly invited people from the NDDC some years ago, including off your mic, and fainting MDs, or was it DGs? Good morning, Mazi. Thank you for calling in.
Good morning, Sayuri.
Yes.
Good morning, our brother.
Mazi, do you have an idea of what's going on?
Yes. You see, the youth have been protesting, even last week, of no board. So if the NDDC, the one that just left now, say that there is board, I could have, at least, it would have told you the names of the members of the board, the chairman and the members. It would have helped us to know exactly what he was saying.
The interim management committee you are talking about.
Board. I mean NDDC now.
Yes, now. Okay.
The man said there's the board now. Who are the chairman and and the members. See, Ogoni land is there. Under the rainy season, my brother Sayuri, go to that side to Ogoni land. You weep. You start asking yourself, what is happening? Is it that the people there, they don't know exactly what to do? Because every year during the election, government will tell us that Ogoni land will be clear and not clear and not clear. There is under one thing that we don't understand in that very place. Now let's take an example at what the Oman just read. Northeast Commission. Northeast Commission is doing well. Nobody has heard about any problem about the board members or the members or the DG or the different. They are moving. The only thing to me as an individual, because Abia State is also under NDDC. There are projects we have there. Look, Sayuri, if you come to Abia State from Ohofia to Aba, since after the Civil War, one contractor will come and drop a timber after 3 weeks or 2 months, they will disappear. After 2 years, another election will come, you see another contractor. What I'm saying is there is cabal or masters that are within that very state that they don't want the federal government to do the needful. Now, what does it take? There are steps within the zone that belongs to NDDC. What they could have done, each state, that's what I've been doing it. You will be chairman, and that's another 2 years, another state takes over. That's what the but since the whole thing just came up under this condition, there's a sort of cabal that don't want the board because now ask yourself, Akpabio left. Kayabo was with Akpabio. Before he talked to Robinson, Kayabo is out. They sent him to labor. Akpabio was handling it. Now, before he left, what is the condition of that place? The whole thing is still lingering. The best thing for government is this. For the youth to have that rest of mind, and for Gorilla to move forward, they should bring out the names of the board members. Let them be board. So that if there is director general, let them be directors. A particular group of people should not be dominating that place. That is the problem in that very place. A particular tribe, or just a clique, are not dominating everything in NDC. What they will employ and sack, it's not healthy. Look, if the Northeast is moving well, nobody's having any problem. What is happening with NDDC? Good morning. Have a blessed day.
Good morning, Maazi. The cabal makes its appearance again, at least in the minds of the ordinary members of the public. Otherwise, why would we have this state of affairs? It beggars belief, but everything that's very, very important and also is lucrative and has the public interest in mind at the same time, you combine those three, invariably the cabal makes some sort of an appearance in at least the allegations that people have in their minds. And this can only be happening because there is no clarity on the matter. I guess that's why we have the situation that we have. When the people don't have clarity on the matter, then they will make up some, and most of it will be going, most of the speculation will be following God knows what it follows. Good morning, Mr. George. Thank you for calling in.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Thank you for calling, sir.
Uncle Yori, I think the problem emanates from when the Ministry of Niger Delta was set up. Because from all indications, what is causing the problem now is conflict of functions. There is no difference between what the Niger Delta Ministry is doing and what the NDDC is doing. It's either you have Niger Delta Ministry or you have NDDC. To have the two together, we will get what we are getting now. It's assuming other regional areas, the need arises to set up development commissions like has been done in the Northeast now. Will you be setting up ministries in every geopolitical zone to oversee them? The functions are not different. I think the president, the speaker that came, rightly diagnosed it. The president is being misled by advisors on it. They are not allowing him to see the true situation of things. That's where the problem lies. And how do we even make even our own inputs have any impact? We should allow the board to stay or scrap the NDDC entirely. Let the ministry be doing it.
Indeed. Indeed.
That's the way I see it.
Indeed. Well, thank you, Mr. George, for calling in with that, view, that point of view. Because, okay, we could just throw that one in as well. Was there a need, for a ministry if, as Mr. George has, speculated, if it was going to conflict? And would you go up setting up the same ministry elsewhere? But no doubt there must have been great thought that went into the initiative, if you want, from the presidency to set up a Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs. It was probably to bring them straight into the presidency so that they are very, very much, so to speak, in front of the presidency to show a seriousness of purpose, indicating how important it is. Because the NDDC was set up as an interventionist agency, and now everybody's, well, not everybody, people are complaining that perhaps all that can be done hasn't been done, and what we're doing is we're being regaled by all the happenings that have been going on, as you know. Okay, so, well, that's what. Oh, Ada in Jos. Good morning, ma'am.
Yes, Ada in Jos. Good morning, Mr. Yuri.
Maybe you have a better idea of what's going on.
But the better idea is we have weak institutions, Mr. Yuri. It's not because we have a board and we have a NDDC. I don't say, I mean, a Niger Delta minister and a board. That's not the issue. We have weak institutions. And again, it reminds me of a saying. It says, the same sun which thaws the ice will harden the clay. Do you understand this? The same sun that will make melt the ice is the same sun that will harden a clay. So what am I trying to say? The problem is with the people of the Niger Delta. If you go there and see the disaster there, no development, nothing, you will know that they have a problem. It is an internal problem. They have issues. That is what is making this thing linger the way it's lingering. And that is why Mr. President is becoming careful about it. But he shouldn't do that, because since it has to do with an act. That's what I'm saying. If we have strong institutions, it doesn't matter who is the president or whatever. They will do what the act says. They will observe the rule of law. But it's not like that in Nigeria, Every time, politics from our source. Why can't they look inward and wonder, why is it the Northeast? Why is their own working? But their own every time. All the money that has been pumped into that area, when I wept. You can't water even. We had to take water from Port Harcourt to go to Bonny. You can't believe it. Because the water there is polluted, everything. In fact, I begin to water, and yet the oil is coming from there. It's really unfortunate. But all the same, let's not give up in this country. It shall be well. All right, Emma.
Thank you very much, Ada. You see, the way you ended it, I suppose you might as well leave it like that, because when a thing is problematic and you don't know the head or two of it, I don't know. The Nigerian will say it will be well, Ogadima. Sorry, do I have another caller on the line? Because I was going to round up. So, indeed, thank you very much for your time. We couldn't get very much joy out of that particular question because everybody is still in the same place. We don't know why things are at a standstill, but they have raised a number of possibilities. Perhaps duplicating functions in between the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs and the NDDC itself. Who knows? Maybe this matter will be resolved in a timely fashion. No, I shouldn't even say timely. In due course. That's our program today. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folaren. Bye-bye for now.